skin comes off. So then Maestro tells the guy, do you want me to unravel all of that stuff outside of you? Then the teacher comes music notes, and then Maestro eats them. Oh, fuck no. What the fuck? Ew, bitch. That's nasty as fuck. Why did you make that fucking noise, bro?
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Saladino. I can't stand Ncuti Gatwa. He defines the word repulsive. If you Googled repulsive, the first image that would come up would be an image of Ncuti Gatwa, probably wearing a dress or something, looking like a complete clown. It's like I say about Neil Druckmann and Neil Gaiman. There's always these Neils. Hassan Piker, Vosh. They make my skin crawl. Gatwa makes my skin crawl the same way. He's in that murderer's row now of people who are just repulsive, revolting, off-putting. And it's bad enough just seeing pictures of him. But now that I've seen clips from the show, from Doctor Who, it's ridiculous. Now I've seen the first 2 episodes of season 1, that they're calling it, with Gatwa as the Doctor. I've seen them reviewed by Disparu and Altieri, and both of them were funny and insightful in their own way. But just looking at Gatwa running around, mincing around, this black guy mincing around, this isn't the Doctor. It's clearly not the Doctor. It's just a gay black man in a show called Doctor Who. It's funny that they are calling it season 1. And listening to the reviews of the first 2 episodes, it's like, okay, they're supposedly making this season 1 as if there was never a Doctor Who before. But if you are approaching that as a viewer and you see these 2 episodes, Doctor Who would never have been a successful show if these are the types of episodes that they're going to produce. And if, you have Gatwa as the Doctor, there's nothing about him. You just look at him and you're like, this is just this gay black guy. And that's, to me, he could be gay. He could be the Doctor. Who was it? Was it Rupert Everett? Is that his name? Did he play Sherlock Holmes? Like, you can have a gay guy. Obviously, throughout history, there have been gay actors, closeted gay actors who have played straight roles. That isn't the problem. The fact that they, like Russell T Davies says at interviews or whatever, they're leaning into the queer stuff because that's just his life. That's not how you approach writing stories for a relatively large audience, especially a general audience, a British television show that started out for kids. You're not going to put this and make this super gay. You could be subtle about it. I said this about Hogwarts Legacy, where they had the character, this woman character you bump into, some kind of like archaeologist or something. And when you talk to her, she tells you she has a wife. This is the 1870s in Scotland. She's talking about she has a wife. She could have just said something where you realize as the player, you could be a mature, grown-up player and go, oh, I get it. This is not just some special friend. This is literally her girlfriend or whatever. They could have done that. Like, the way they keep talking about representation in these male-dominated, straight-dominated hobbies. This isn't why people come to these hobbies. They don't come to it for representation. They come to it for the interest in these particular genres. So if you're into Doctor Who, you're into it for the adventure. You're into it for the character of the Doctor. After they screwed up BBC, listening to Twitter, insisting on making the Doctor a woman, they do that. They destroy this show. They destroy the lore. They destroy the ratings. They bring Russell T Davies back, and he's not interested in doing shows anymore. He's not interested in being creative anymore. I knew that he wasn't going to cast a white guy, so he cast a black guy. But not only does he cast a black guy, he casts a gay black guy. And then he, again, leans into this queer stuff. And in an interview, he's talking about, oh, it's my life. It's just like me. I'm just, I'm queer, so that should be. He wasn't doing that when he first was working on Doctor Who. Why is he doing it now? Because, again, he's not interested in being creative anymore. He's burnt out. That first episode called Space Babies that he did with Gatwa, listening to the reviews from Disparu and Altieri, clearly he had AI assist on that because of the lack of logic in something that happens in that first episode. Apparently, there's this monster, there's these babies in space. This boogeyman monster is made out of boogers. It's disgusting, but it's made out of boogers. That's what it's made out of. So they go, this monster's going around terrorizing people, killing people, whatever. At a certain point, when one of the people on this space station, they're all trapped in this space station, this, I guess, nanny character, the Space Babies, decides to launch this creature out of the airlock into space. Out of nowhere, the Doctor goes, no, it's a living creature. It's one of the babies. We've got to stop you from killing this thing. But it's not one of the babies. It's made from the snot of the babies. But that's the kind of thing AI would do. It makes something stupid like that, where out of nowhere, with no explanation, all of a sudden the doctor decides he doesn't want to kill the monster because it's actually one of the babies, when nobody ever says in the episode that it's one of the babies. They say it's a snot monster. And it reminds me of how clearly Rings of Power was written by AI. The whole volcano explosion, Mount Doom, Mordor exploding like that, and the lava ash just hits everybody, and they all survive it. You wouldn't survive that. But AI doesn't know that. So they put it in there, and nobody's checking this stuff. They don't care. And so Davies is making this about his queer life. And talking about, and there's this interview where he's saying, well, this is a much more accepting world. So there may be dark corners of Twitter who doesn't like the fact that we have a gay black Doctor Who and we're leaning into this gay nonsense. But this is a much more accepting world. But one doesn't have to do with the other. It has nothing to do with the other. Being accepting in real life of somebody being gay or trans, accepting different races and different cultures, that's fine. That's no problem with that. But you can't force that into Doctor Who and pretend it's the same thing. Just because Ncuti Gatwa is a black gay man who in society we should accept as a person, whatever, doesn't mean we need to accept him as the Doctor. This isn't about representation. It's about entertainment. It's about continuity and lore. People don't want to see change like this on this level. They always do this thing. People who defend this crap, they do this argument where they go, oh, you can accept dragons and other fantasy elements, but you can't accept a black elf or a black Greek god. Just because it's fantasy doesn't mean it shouldn't have rules or context or be grounded. And it doesn't mean that someone who actually cares about this stuff and is used to it seeing it a certain way, even with the Doctor, they change all the time. Different actors play the role, and it's a clever way to do it. So people are more accepting of that level of change. But you're not going to change their race or change their gender or their sexuality and get away with that. And this thing about, oh, you can accept dragons, but you can't accept a black elf. These are the same people. It's a disingenuous argument because these are the same people who will defend race-bending queens of England and Vikings. So it doesn't matter the fantasy context. It doesn't matter what context is in. They just want to destroy these hobbies because they're getting at straight white men. And they use this representation argument as if it's a thing. It's sort of like an interesting kind of an analogy, at least to me, about trans stuff. Of course, saying that someone who's trans is actually the gender that they say they are is something that these activists today are saying. It wasn't a thing back in the past. Everybody recognizes that trans is separate from being just a man or a woman. And it's not even about being non-binary. It's somebody who has some kind of mental condition or chemical condition or something, maybe even spiritual condition, but they're not actually the gender they identify. And society doesn't separate gender from sex. That's, again, a disingenuous argument. It's this thing where they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth or something. It's this thing where, like Davies is saying, I'm queer. This is a much more accepting world. There's no problem with making Doctor Who a queer show because people are more accepting of that. It's not about someone being queer or black or a woman. It's about the Doctor being queer or black or woman, which he's not. That's the thing. Just that they put the two of them together and pretend that that's the issue. It's this thing, and I might do a separate video on this. I won't get too much into it. It's this thing about the black samurai in Assassin's Creed, where the IGN does this article and this clown says, oh, let's not pretend that we want Japanese representation in a samurai story. That's not doing anything for Asian representation. It's like, this isn't about Asian representation. People are not going to play Assassin's Creed because they care about Asian representation. Video games is a hobby. It's not a support group. We're not worried about whether or not an Asian man is represented or a black man should be represented in feudal Japan. This is an activist concern, and they're pretending like it's the concern of everybody who plays video games. They pretend like they're saving the world. Like the second episode, I guess, is something to do. It's called The Devil's Court. It's got this trans person in it, somebody who was in RuPaul's Drag Race or something like that, talking about an article saying, fine, we can lose all the transphobic viewers that we want. We'll gain more people who will be there excited for the trans representation. Who's excited for trans representation? I don't even believe that trans people care that much about seeing trans representation in Doctor Who. But it's not a thing where the representation means more than general populace's entertainment. Like if you're a fan of Doctor Who, if you put a trans character in it, if it's done well, fine. If you want to do these things, you can do them and not hit people over the head with it. Again, Russell T Davies, he knows what he's doing. I say again because I've done other videos where I've talked about how Davies is being very disingenuous and obviously cynical. Like he said with turning Davros into this guy, this regular dude walking around instead of being in that power chair that he is in, that Dalek chair. Talking about, oh, he's a wheelchair user who's evil. And that's that's a bad mark on wheelchair users in real life. That's not what it is at all. He's just saying that. You look at that picture. There's that picture, that disgusting picture of him in Gatwa. I guess it's some press conference for the show. I think it was like last year, early this year, that came out where Gatwa's wearing that ridiculous black, I don't know, dress with his tits out or something. And he's got his head thrown back and the two of them are posing together, him and Davies. And Gatwa's in his own world, flaming up, right? Davies is looking directly at the camera. He knows what you're thinking when you see this picture. It's like, look at these two bundles of sticks. Or particularly look at this bundle of sticks who I've cast as the Doctor. And you're going to hate this. Like, right now, Davies is doing these different articles and he's completely doubling and tripling down about, oh, this is important for representation. I don't care if people don't watch it. This is a much better world. We need to go further and further. He even makes a comment about how voting. And I'm thinking maybe this, what this is all about. They're losing so much money on this because the show obviously isn't successful. Like this season is not successful. It's doing terrible in the ratings because nobody wants to see a gay black man play the Doctor. But maybe Davies and Disney are doing this to help Biden. Maybe they're doing this trying to, and I say to help Biden in the sense that to radicalize fans. So you have Doctor Who fans and geeks and nerds complaining about the casting, complaining about the actual episodes themselves, the lack of structure, the absurdity of it, the obvious agenda and bias that's being pushed in these episodes. So you have a bunch of people complaining and they'll just focus on straight white men and saying that it's Nazis are complaining, they hate a black guy, they're racist. And this is a way to sort of mobilize normies against ever re-electing Trump because it's just going to be a terrible society. We're all going to be forced to watch Doctor Who with a straight man as the Doctor. And we won't have video games with black men as samurais. I don't know because this isn't successful. And Davies is a veteran. He did a really fine job when they brought Doctor Who back in the first place. An artist, a skillful artist, knows how to tell a story and knows how to put the things they care about in it and make it acceptable or make it interesting and engaging. He's not doing that now. He's literally I talked about this in other videos when I talked about Davies and how he was acting with people on Twitter. He's trolling fans. That picture, I need to get into Photoshop because I want to put devil horns on that picture with him and Gatwa at that event or whatever, where he's looking at the camera saying, you see this, right? You see what I'm going to do to your Doctor, right? You thought that it was already bad, that my buddy made the Doctor a woman and that we completely destroyed the lore by turning the Origin as this little black girl. This stuff is insane. And to make this argument that, oh, it's about representation. They can virtue signal all they want to about representation, but not even the Tumblr crowd cares that much about a female Doctor. They didn't watch it. They don't care anything about a black gay Doctor. They're not watching it now. But if you brought Tennant and Billie Piper back, or if you got a Doctor that was like that, and a companion that was like that, that's what they'd rather see. A straight Doctor and a straight, cute companion having sexual tension and fun together.
Oh my god. This is so freaking ridiculous. You know, hey, there's a challenge that you guys should do. Watch this entire episode on mute. I swear to God, because I had it playing with no sound for a little bit. Just look how it looks with no sound, just for some context.